Good morning. It's June 13th, actually Friday the 13th, and this is To My Liberal Friends. Well, yesterday I mentioned that I would give you a framework, what I think could be for an immigration bill. And we need to address the immigration reform. And I've been thinking about this for quite some time. So what I've done is put together a framework to begin the process. Well, the most single important issue is securing the border. If we're not going to secure the border, then everything else is just window dressing and won't work. Trump's made a huge effort in this, and we've seen the number of illegal crossings drop precipitously. We also have to address the problem of visa overstays. We witnessed the problem of that out in Colorado this month. When I lived in D.C., if I was at Dulles Airport and stood next to the international gate, people coming through customs, you would see people with 5, 6 suitcases, huge suitcases taped together. Now, they were there on tourist visas, but they looked like overstays to me. They weren't going back. We also have thousands of Irish here in this country, in New York and around the country, and they just sort of blend in, and we don't think of them as being undocumented, but they are. The next major step involves something that Democrats would oppose, but it would solve a few other problems as well. I would issue every American citizen a national identity card. It would involve biometric identifiers, making it very difficult to duplicate. And it's something that everybody would get, and it would, as I said, it would solve a lot of other voting issues in that. Then we have to decide how many immigrants we actually need in the country. We're not going to deport everybody in the country. That discussion just isn't going to work. But let's assume that there are 12 million here illegally. And if you think we're going to put all of them, as I said, you're not looking at the problem rationally. So out of that 12 million, we have to decide how many we can keep. And let's say that number for our purposes is 5 million, and it could be a different number. They would have to get in line, show how long they've been here, what their work situation has been, have they been paying taxes, what they've been doing on their own, no criminal records. They would then be given an ID card with biometrics that would permit them to remain in the U.S. and work legitimately to come out of the shadows where employers could no longer take advantage of them. Now, if this immigration law is going to work, that's what we have to do, and we're not going to chase employees, the undocumented people anymore. We're going to go after employers. If we find that they're employing undocumented workers, illegal immigrants, without that card that we've given them, we're going to fine them. And the second time, the fine is going to be 3 times that, and the third time, it's going to be a felony to somebody in that company. Now, how fast do you think the Marriott Corporation would get out a memo? You better be checking for these cards. And that would solve that problem, not chasing people, going after the employers. And this immigration law with language going forward that anybody that enters the country illegally or overstays a travel visa would be ineligible to ever stay in the country legally. They would be sent back. We would also have to put those that come to the border and try to claim asylum, the stay in Mexico problem. Wait there. You'll get a court case. You can make your case, because we all know that the vast majority of people claiming asylum are really here for economic issues. And while I understand that, that's not going to qualify. I would also include some language to take care of the current DACA kids. That's the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals. These are kids that have been here for most of their lives, in some cases do not know anyone in their country of origin. This would be a one-time fix. Cannot be repeated in the future. And that brings us to the issue before the Supreme Court right now, birthright citizenship. That's looking at the 14th Amendment that put that in and what brought us into being. In the aftermath of the Civil War, states were passing laws in the South that said if your parents weren't a citizen, you're not a citizen. Therefore, you cannot vote. Now, I didn't see anybody sneaking across the border to be a slave. This was to ensure that freed slaves were considered citizens and could vote. So the real test case was Wong v. U.S. in 1898. Well, Wong Kim Ark was born in 1863 in San Francisco to parents who were both Chinese citizens. They were here to work on the railroad. They later returned to China, and the son, now in his late teens, went back to China with them. He married his wife and gave birth to their son. In 1890, he returned to the United States, but under the Chinese Exclusion Act of 1882, he could not bring his family with him. But he was allowed to come back in. Well, in 1894, he once again went back to China to visit his wife. When he returned in August of 1895, he was denied entry, saying he was not a citizen based on that act. He was then held in a ship in San Francisco Harbor for a total of 5 months. The case was heard in the Ninth Circuit, and the district judge agreed with Wong's attorneys that Wong was a citizen. The case then moved to the Supreme Court. The court considered the single question in the case to be whether a child born in the United States of parents of Chinese descent who at the time of his birth are subjects to the Emperor of China, but have a permanent domicile and residence in the United States and are carrying on business and are not employed in a diplomatic official capacity. That becomes the key issue. They were here at the time in the country legally under the law. They were not here illegally. And that's what I would address how this is. If you're here legally in the country and your child is born, that child would be a citizen. But if you're here illegally, we're one of the only country that grants citizenship based on this, predicated on this illegal act. And that's going to get solved by the court, I think, finally. And the key issue, as you're going to read, is the country of jurisdiction. When somebody crosses the border, their country of jurisdiction, for them, in my opinion, is their home country. It's not the United States. They're not here legally. Now, all of this is just a framework of how an immigration bill could be constructed. There are a lot of other sub-issues in there that are going to have to be resolved, but I'm looking at this as a broad macro type thing. And if you have any comments or agree or disagree, I'd be happy to listen to them. It's been To My Liberal Friends. Thanks for listening.